Hi there viewers, it's the Extraordinary Tourist here. Today thought I'd spend some time adding to my eBay series. I'm going to be wrapping this artwork which I recently sold on eBay, and I thought I'd tell you a little bit about it and a little bit about the auction and give you some sort of real figures on what to expect when it comes to selling your art on eBay. Now this particular artwork is called Mother's Bed. It's an acrylic on canvas, and the dimensions of this is 60 centimeters that way by 50 centimeters that way. I listed this artwork on eBay in a 5-day auction that started on a Tuesday evening and finished on a Sunday. As far as auction listings go, it's generally good if you can get your auctions to finish on either a Friday, a Saturday or a Sunday, preferably in the evening, because a lot of people, when they're bidding on auctions, bid at the last minute, and those 3 evenings are the evenings that they're most likely to be at home on their computers sort of browsing eBay. So what I was going to tell you in terms of your auction listing, and to give you some idea about the kind of statistics that my auctions get, this particular artwork I listed on a Tuesday, as I said, and between Tuesday and Sunday it had a total of 10 people watching the auction in their accounts. Now 10 watches on one of my artworks is actually pretty good for me. I usually average between 3 and 5 watches on most of my auctions, and that's usually only on auctions that are cat artworks like this one. If I list something that isn't a cat artwork, I'm lucky if I get 1 or 2 people watching it. And also throughout that time, the total number of views that my auction got was about 80. So that sort of gives you some idea about the kind of traffic that you can expect from eBay's so-called millions of viewers. The number of views your auction gets isn't necessarily an indication of how many people have actually looked at your auction, but it does give you some idea. So if you're interested in what I'm doing at the moment, all my artworks include a certificate of authenticity, which I attach to the back, and that's just a signed statement to say that this is actually an artwork that I did, and generally it's meant to be sold with the artwork, just as a further way of sort of adding value to it and sort of making it clear that this is one of my artworks, because I don't actually sign my artworks with my own name anymore, but I do sign the certificate with my own name so that people associate the name Tet, which is what I sign my artworks with my real name. So just staple that on there so that it's kept with the artwork on the back. Okay, so it got about 80 views, but it didn't get anyone bidding for it until the last hour of the auction on Sunday night, and that's pretty common with most auctions. Most people bid at the very last minute because they know that in doing that the price won't climb too high from multiple bids, or if they get into a bidding war, it's less chance for the price of whatever it is they're buying to get so high that they won't be able to afford it. So in the last hour I had someone bid on it, and my opening bid was $45, and it was a buy now auction, and my buy now price was $119. Now you might think with 10 watches the bidding for that auction would have been pretty aggressive, and there'd be a lot of people wanting to buy that artwork, but in the big scheme of things only 2 people actually bid on it, and there was, in the last hour there was 4 bids, and the artwork actually sold for $61.05, which is just over half of what I actually wanted in the buy now price. And for one of my auctions that's pretty good. If I get half of what the buy now price is, then I'm fairly happy. A lot of the times my auctions will, if somebody bids, it'll be the first bid that wins it. So if you're looking to own one of my artworks, all you need to do is put in a bid, and there's a good chance you'll be the proud owner of one of my works. Though having said that, my cat artworks in particular are getting more and more popular, and I'm getting more watches on them, so hopefully over time I'll get a lot more people competing to own my artwork, and the prices will go up, and maybe I'll actually get the buy now price that I want. So I've given you the details on this artwork and how it went. For me that auction was a particularly good one, and I would call it a successful auction. I certainly made a profit on my materials and all those kinds of things. And something else, the actual buyer of this artwork has bought one of my works previously, so now that they've got a couple of my works, that pretty much makes them a collector, so that's something else that's quite useful, or quite nice to know that people are coming back to, or actually want to own more than just one artwork of mine. So now I have an article on Helium, and I'll give you the web address for that gives you 14 tips to improve your listings on eBay so that you get more watches. And if you really want to improve your auction listings and stuff, you'll take the time and go and read what I have to say in that. But for this video, what I thought I'd talk about is some key points that are more important than any of the other points listed in that article if you want to get more people to look at your auction on eBay. So the first key point I wanted to talk about was categories. Now, when you list your artwork on eBay, be absolutely sure that you've listed it in the right category, because if you list it in the wrong category, what you're doing is leaving yourself open to people who make a really good living on eBay looking for things listed in the wrong category. What they do is, because it's listed in the wrong category, there's a good chance they'll be able to buy that item at a cheaper price, relist it in the correct category, and then make a profit. So obviously you don't want someone else to make a profit off your artwork, so list it in the right category from the outset. So what's the right category? Well, the right category is a category that describes, or best describes, what your artwork is. and there are a lot of people who just browse categories and they have favourite categories, so you want to make sure that you capture those people who do that. For me, I list my artwork in 2 categories, so that gives me 2 options to capture different people who just like to browse categories. But something you need to know about that is that if you list in 2 categories, it doubles your auction listing fees. So if you're sort of not too worried about the cost of that, then I would recommend you list in 2 categories. So my first category I list in is self-representing artists, and self-representing artists has a couple of subcategories, and I think, just trying to remember off the top of my head, the subcategory that I list in is contemporary and then paintings, acrylic paint, oil and acrylic paintings I think it is. So people who are looking for paintings by emerging artists like myself, they would look in the self-representing artist category. The other category that I list in is a more general category, and it's just under art, paintings and then contemporary, so that people who are just looking for paintings and they're not too fussy about whether you're an emerging artist or not, they get to see my work in that category also. The second thing I wanted to talk about, and this is even more important than categories, but it is even so, it's the other way that people, those millions and millions of people on eBay, will find your auction listing, and that is through the use of keywords. Now, the majority of people find what they're looking for on eBay by doing searches, and obviously they search for keywords. So, in order to make sure your artwork turns up in their search, and ideally you want it to turn up in the first page of their search, you need to choose the correct keywords, or the best keywords that best describe what your artwork is. Well, firstly, there are 2 types of keywords. There's primary keywords, and then there are secondary keywords. Primary keywords are the most generic words you can think of that still describe what your artwork is. So for my artwork, this one that you're looking at here, or that I showed you here, the primary keywords that I used to describe that were art, cat and painting. Now, if you think of people doing a search on eBay who are looking for paintings of cats, what's the first thing they're likely to type in? And I believe the first thing they're likely to type in is cat art. So that's the most generic of searches you could probably do, or using the most generic keywords. So those keywords are in my title. That's the other thing too, most people search on titles only more than descriptions, so make sure your keywords are in the title of your listing. So someone doing a search for cat art would get my listing come up. If they did cat painting, they would get my listing come up. If they did cat art painting, they would get it, obviously. So your primary keywords are the most generic keywords you can think of that still describe your art. There's no point in using keywords that have nothing to do with your art. You're just wasting an opportunity, and your artwork will just come up in searches for people who aren't looking for what your artwork is, so you've just wasted your time. So that's primary keywords. Secondary keywords again, are generic words that describe your art, but they're generic, they're slightly more detailed and describe your work just that little bit more. So for example, this artwork here that I'm wrapping, a secondary keyword for that would be kitten, because something else that appears in this artwork is a kitten, so that's a good keyword. If someone's doing a search for kitten painting or art kitten, then that's going to come up. Or if they do cat kitten art, that'll get my artwork coming up. So that's my example of a secondary keyword. One thing you shouldn't do with your auction titles is do things like include the name of your painting if it doesn't describe your artwork in any sort of general sense. So, say for example, if this artwork was a picture of a cat, and say the cat's name was Jack for argument's sake, which is one of my other cat characters, there's no point putting the word Jack in the title, because that's just wasting a keyword opportunity. No one who likes cats is going to enter the word Jack in a search for cats. If you can, try and make your listing title make sense. Don't just put a load of keywords, because when people see your title come up in their search listings, if all you've got is a load of keywords, then you've sort of missed an opportunity to intrigue them about your artwork. So try and make your title make a bit of sense, so that people don't just see keywords, they see something that looks like a sentence and might prompt them to look further into it, into what you're selling. So those are my two main points that I wanted to cover about auction listings. Being in the right category and having the right keywords are probably the most critical aspects when it comes to listing your artwork. Probably the only other thing I would say about listings is that you should remember that you are selling artwork, and the best way to sell your artwork is by showing it rather than describing it. So the only extra feature in eBay that you have to pay for, that I would say you absolutely must pay for, is having your art, I think it's called gallery featured, which is where a picture of your artwork actually appears next to your listing in people's searches. I would say that's absolutely critical, and always pay for that. It's free usually to upload your first image, so that image is the one that will appear next to your artwork. Those are my sort of three main tips. If you want to get some more tips about what you can do to improve your auctions, I'd highly recommend that you go have a read of my Helium article, and as I said, I'll give you the link for that, so do check that out. It's got some good ideas in there. And I guess until next time, this will probably be my last in my eBay series. So if you do have any further questions or whatever about eBay, perhaps leave a comment on this video or send me a message or whatever. Or if you like, you could join my network for people trying to earn a living from their creativity online, which is the Tourist Lounge, and you'll find a link to that from my website. So until next video, we shall see you later.